Shocking CBC showdown. Carney confronted by a lawyer, as Canadians say why they're being left behind. Mark Carney's rise to the Prime Minister's office in the wake of the April 28 snap election was billed by many as a fresh start for the Liberal Party, a chance to reset, refocus, and reconnect with Canadians. But barely 3 months into his mandate, serious cracks are already showing in the foundation of his government. A recent confrontation on CBC, where Carney was directly challenged by a high-profile lawyer representing 9 Indigenous nations, brought national attention to growing dissatisfaction not just from political rivals, but from citizens and communities who feel ignored, misled, and sidelined. At the center of the exchange was Bill C-5, a sweeping piece of legislation that Carney is tied to his Building Canada vision. The bill was framed by the Prime Minister as a bold initiative to streamline infrastructure and energy projects, he claimed, that would accelerate economic growth and clean energy transformation. However, the lawyer representing Indigenous communities ripped into the proposal during a heated interview, accusing the government of bypassing environmental regulations and Indigenous consultation in favor of political expediency. She pointed out that the bill effectively allows the federal cabinet to greenlight massive projects without requiring any meaningful oversight. Indigenous leaders have since echoed those concerns, warning that Bill C-5 is not only undemocratic but also reminiscent of past eras when Indigenous voices were ignored in the name of national progress. Many are calling it a betrayal of reconciliation, accusing the government of paying lip service to Indigenous rights while fast-tracking decisions that will permanently alter their lands. Despite promises of unprecedented speed, no actual projects have begun, and even insiders admit no shovels will hit the ground for at least 2 years. Critics argue that the urgency Carney speaks of seems to vanish when it comes to delivering results, replaced instead with announcements, panels, and photo ops. The outrage doesn't stop there. In Ontario, the recent sentencing of Calney, a permanent resident caught attempting to engage sexually with what he believed to be a 15-year-old, has triggered national shock and anger. Despite graphic chat transcripts and clear intent, Calney received a conditional discharge, a punishment that will leave him with no criminal record. The court cited his high IQ, clean record, and the potential damage a conviction could cause to his immigration status. Canadians across the political spectrum were left stunned. Many feel this case exposes a deeply unequal justice system, one that shows leniency to non-citizens while failing to prioritize the safety of Canadian children. Canadians are increasingly uneasy with what they perceive as a justice system more interested in protecting reputations than upholding public safety. This concern deepened further after revelations from Calgary, where a family has lived in fear due to a neighbor's repeated threats. Videos show the man wielding hatchets, defacing property, and yelling racial slurs. Yet local police, rather than lay charges, labeled it a mental health incident and refused to act. The family, now living in a state of constant anxiety, says they've lost faith in both law enforcement and the system that enables this kind of passivity. Adding to public frustration is the growing perception that Carney's cabinet is stacked with underperformers. The Justice Minister, long criticized for previous failures in housing and immigration portfolios, has stumbled in press appearances, offering vague reassurances without clear plans. The Public Safety Minister, once mired in controversy for supporting the entry of a radical figure into Canada, has refused to resign, and Carney continues to defend him. When pressed by journalists about these appointments, the Prime Minister has offered the same recycled phrase, "They have my confidence," a response many now interpret as tone-deaf and dismissive. Public confidence is eroding fast. More Canadians are beginning to question the government's ability, or willingness, to handle core responsibilities. While housing affordability continues to spiral and violent crime increases in many urban centers, the Liberal government's responses have centered on long-term planning and rhetorical commitments rather than immediate action. Critics argue that citizens don't need more commissions or talking points. They need safer streets, affordable homes, and accountability. The disconnect between the federal government and everyday Canadians is becoming more pronounced. Town hall meetings and public forums have seen citizens confront MPs with stories of economic hardship, community insecurity, and systemic failures. Many feel unheard, watching as federal priorities seem to shift away from basic governance toward large-scale legacy projects, green slogans, and international conferences. For those left grappling with rising grocery bills, hospital wait times, and failing infrastructure, these high-level ambitions feel abstract and irrelevant. Carney's communication style, measured, polished, and technocratic, hasn't helped him in these emotionally charged moments. Where Trudeau often relied on empathetic language, Carney's tone is more clinical, leaving many Canadians feeling as though their lived experiences are being processed like economic data rather than human realities. Even some longtime Liberal supporters have voiced concern that the new leadership is out of step with the emotional pulse of the country. Despite these growing tensions, Carney continues to lean heavily on branding, pushing the idea that Canada is entering a new era of modernity and discipline. But branding alone won't solve the problems piling up at his doorstep. The promise of progress means little when crime victims are dismissed, Indigenous communities are overridden, and those who break the law walk free. What Canadians want is leadership that listens, responds, and acts, not just one that performs. The recent CBC exchange may have been just one televised confrontation, but it tapped into a deeper undercurrent of frustration sweeping the country. From Indigenous groups to middle-class families, from public safety advocates to legal experts, more and more voices are saying they feel left behind. If the Carney government doesn't begin to address these concerns head-on, with urgency, transparency, and empathy, it risks becoming a government defined not by its vision, but by its blind spots. As tensions mount, the future of Canada's political landscape hangs in the balance. With rising discontent and deepening polarization, the next few months could be critical. Whether Mark Carney chooses to double down on centralized control or pivot toward broader engagement may well determine whether this government restores trust or accelerates national division.